God's final message to the world. Listen carefully before midnight tonight. Heaven leans closer than ever, and the silence between heartbeats is echoing with urgency. This is not a message for the curious. It is a divine call to the awakened. God's final message to the world is not thunder from the sky, but a whisper in the soul so powerful it can shake the earth. Before midnight, before the veil of illusion thickens again, you must listen with your spirit, not your ears. The signs have been all around you, the collapsing systems, the rising inner restlessness, the divine discontent that will not let you settle. You are not here by accident. You were chosen to hear this before the clock strikes the unseen hour. This message is not a warning, it is a door, and if you dare to open it, everything in your world will change, because the God within you has waited long enough to be remembered. The time is not tomorrow. It is now. Midnight is approaching, and eternity is leaning in to see who hears. Will it be you? There comes a moment in every soul's journey where the veil of appearances begins to tremble, where the external world, so solid, so unquestioned, suddenly feels like a stage, and the actors like echoes of your own silent thoughts. That moment is not a breakdown, it is a breakthrough, for God's final message to the world is not a message written in thunder or carved into stone. It is a spiritual unveiling that tells you the world you see is the world you've imagined. The chaos outside, the betrayal, the collapse, the endless noise, they are not the enemy. They are the mirror, and God has allowed them not to punish, but to awaken. You thought the problem was the world. You thought you had to fix it, pray it away, fight against it. But now, in the quiet before midnight, you are shown the deeper truth. The outer world was always a projection of your inner state, and every war began in the mind of someone who forgot who they were. This is the hour where the illusion must die. You were never born to be at the mercy of conditions. You were born to master them by remembering the divine power of consciousness. Not consciousness as a vague idea, but consciousness as the one true power that forms and shapes the seen from the unseen. When God formed the world, he didn't lift a finger. He spoke, and the spoken word wasn't a sound. It was an assumption, a vision, a knowing. And that knowing, that word, became flesh and walked among us, not in the form of a distant deity, but in the very breath and being of you. But you forgot. You traded the infinite for the urgent. You accepted the news of the world as greater than the truth of your own imagination. You believed more in the evidence of your senses than in the power of your soul. You let the world tell you who you are, instead of declaring who you choose to be. And now God is reminding you, midnight is not simply a time on the clock. It is a state of awareness. It is that tipping point between the seen and the unseen, the known and the possible. Before it arrives in full force, before the tide of illusion tries once again to cover the truth, God whispers his final message into the hearts of those who are ready. Everything you experience, you have authored. That's not to condemn, it's to free you. Because if you imagined it in ignorance, you can reimagine it in truth. If you accepted suffering unconsciously, you can now claim healing deliberately. The world has told you you're small, that you're at the mercy of systems, of governments, of economics, of timing. But all of that was only true because you agreed with it, and now you are called to withdraw your agreement. Now you are called to reclaim your authorship. Do you not see? The relationships that wounded you, the job that drained you, the body that failed you, the society that confused you, none of these were random. They were reflections, not of who you are, but of what you've believed. And every belief is a seed. God's final message is an invitation to plant new seeds, truthful ones, seeds like, I am divine, I am the image of the I am not a creature waiting to be saved, I am consciousness remembering its power. Once you grasp this, the world can no longer trick you, the lies lose their grip, you no longer fear what's happening outside because you finally understand that what happens within you is what truly shapes the world. And this shift, though silent, is the greatest revolution this world has ever known. Look around you. Can't you feel it? The systems are trembling not because they are cursed, but because they can no longer contain the magnitude of the awakening that's coming. The world is not ending. It's being reborn, but birth is messy. Awakening feels like collapse before it feels like clarity, and the old self, The one who depended on appearances, who fed on fear, who doubted the inner voice, must be buried before the true self can rise. That's why you feel the pressure. That's why you feel the urgency. It's not coming from the world. It's coming from your spirit, from the part of you that has waited lifetimes to remember, from the divine witness within you that has never left, never doubted, and never been deceived. God's message, then, is not just the world is changing. No, it's far deeper than that. His message is, you are changing, and the world must reflect that. You don't need to fight the darkness. You only need to shine your light. You don't need to shout your truth, only embody it, because as within, so without. This is the forgotten law that governs everything, and when enough people begin to live from that truth, the world as we know it must dissolve. Not because of war, but because of waking up, not because of destruction, but because of deliverance. You are not watching the end, you are witnessing the return of inner authority, the return of divine identity, the return of imagination as the sacred act of creation. So what now? What do you do before midnight? You go within. You examine every belief, every assumption, every fearful agreement you've made with this world. You ask yourself, do I still choose this, or am I ready to see through it? You stop reacting and you start imagining, not from ego but from essence. You shut off the noise and you listen to the still small voice that has never stopped speaking. That voice is not a stranger, it's you, the real you, the God, self that doesn't need permission to create, doesn't need credentials to command, and doesn't need validation to know it is loved. That is the voice you must obey now. Before midnight, because after midnight the door closes, not because God punishes, but because what you've assumed becomes solid. The midnight hour is the crystallization of consciousness. It is when imagination locks into manifestation. So choose well, assume wisely, trust fully. This is the hour where saints are born, not in temples, but in living rooms, bedrooms, broken spaces, and silent corners. This is the hour where miracles are not begged for, they are claimed. This is the hour where you do not wait for the world to change. You become the change in consciousness, and the world mirrors you without delay. Yes, God is giving his final message, but it's not a sentence. It's a choice, a fork in the road between illusion and truth, between fear and faith, between remembering and forgetting, and you, beautiful soul, were sent here to remember, to awaken, to imagine again, this time with divine awareness. For the world, you see, is not finished, it is waiting for your vision. And now, before the midnight of this age falls upon the unaware, you have been given the grace to see clearly. As the hour draws near and the veil between illusion and truth thins, something divine is happening, not in the clouds or cathedrals, but deep within your consciousness. God's final message to the world is not just an awakening, it is a separation. Before midnight strikes in the realm of the spirit, a great line is being drawn, not by angels wielding swords, but by the power of awareness itself. This is not about heaven or hell in some distant realm. It is about the choice you are making in every moment, to live as your divine self or to remain asleep in the role the world has handed you. God is separating the real from the false, not in judgment, but in clarity. That is the message, that is the gift, and that is the urgency you feel pressing on your chest right now. The world you knew, the patterns you clung to, the false identities, the roles, the masks, all of it is being pulled away like a stage set collapsing after the final act. The question is, will you step forward as the actor who played the part, or will you remember that you are the author who wrote the play? This separation is not coming for you, it's coming through you. The people you once connected with, the environments you once felt safe in, the beliefs that once defined you, they are no longer compatible with the version of you that's being born. That's not betrayal. That's the divine dividing line that always appears before transformation, and make no mistake, before midnight you will have to decide, not with your words, but with your state of being, are you the awakened soul, governed by inner truth? Or are you still clinging to the egoic self who survives by fear, performance, and validation? You see, God doesn't punish, but what doesn't match the vibration of truth will fall away. It must. That's the law. That's the mercy, and that's why the separation is not something to fear, it's something to embrace. It's not the end of the world, it's the end of the lie that told you you're unworthy, the lie that said you must prove your value. The lie that convinced you to play small, to wait, to shrink. The lie that taught you to worship a God outside of you, rather than realize that God is the very breath animating your soul. That false self cannot follow you into what's coming. It must be left behind. Just as the caterpillar cannot cling to the cocoon once the wings have formed, you cannot carry your old beliefs into this new dimension of living. The separation is happening in silence. It's not visible to the world, but within you, you feel it. A growing tension, a sacred dissatisfaction, a knowing that you can no longer pretend to be someone you're not. That is God's grace. That is the final message gently shaking you awake. Because if you delay too long, if you refuse to choose, the world will choose for you, and it always chooses fear. But you were never made to bow to fear. You were created in the image of the I Am. That means you are free. That means you have power, and that means this separation is not exile, it's elevation. The people falling away, the habits breaking down, the emotions surfacing with nowhere to hide, these are not signs of chaos. They are signs of the shift. You asked for clarity, you begged for transformation, and God is answering, not with lightning, but with divine division. Everything false is being stripped so that what is eternal in you may rise without resistance. But that rising doesn't happen automatically. It happens by choice, by faith, by surrender, and you must make that decision before the spiritual midnight comes, before your old assumptions harden into a reality you can't reverse. You're not being asked to fix the world. You're being asked to fix your gaze. Stop looking out there. The war is not out there. The real battle is in your mind, between the voice that says, I am not enough, and the voice that says, I am, between the personality and the presence, between fear and vision. Before midnight, you must decide which voice you will obey, because the one you agree with is the one that will write your tomorrow. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot live from truth and lie at the same time. And you cannot stay neutral in a time of spiritual crossing. There is no more time to delay, no more time to keep one foot in the old and one foot in the new. The Spirit of God is calling you to rise fully, boldly, and completely into who you really are, before the door of transformation closes and the world around you reflects your indecision. And let us be clear, separation is not about rejecting others or casting blame. It's not about labeling others as asleep or wrong. It's about vibrating in truth so deeply that anything false simply cannot remain. When you step into your true identity as divine consciousness clothed in form, everything that once resonated with your limited self must either rise with you or fall away. That's not cruelty, that's divine order. And when it happens, you must not mourn, you must not cling. You must let go with reverence, because your rising is sacred, and the cost of staying stuck is far too high. What is coming to you is greater than what is leaving. What you are becoming is more glorious than anything you've had to release. And if you will trust the process, if you will honor the voice within that says, this is not your home anymore, you will find yourself reborn before the world even realizes what happened. God's final message is not to scare you. It is to clarify you, because without clarity you will drift, and drifting is dangerous when the tides are shifting. This is not the hour to compromise your soul for comfort. This is the hour to stand in your knowing, to declare with your being, I am no longer who I was. I am no longer available for the limitations I used to accept. I am no longer willing to betray myself just to be accepted by a world that doesn't know my worth. I am ready to be seen, not as the mask, not as the role, but as the vessel of divine truth that I was always meant to embody. That's the choice, that's the separation, and that's what the hour before midnight demands from those who are awake. So what will it be? Will you return to the old patterns simply because they feel familiar? Will you silence the divine discontent and settle for surviving when you were meant to create? Or will you rise, silently, boldly, and with full authority, into the truth that the kingdom is within you, and you are no longer asleep? This separation isn't happening to hurt you, it's happening to heal you. And though it may feel like loss, it's actually alignment. You're not losing the people, places, or parts of you that mattered. You're losing the parts that were never truly yours to begin with. What's real cannot be lost. What's false cannot remain, And once you know that, once you feel the fire of that clarity in your chest, you will no longer beg the old world to love you. You will walk forward in power, eyes fixed not on what is fading, but on what is forming. This is your hour. This is your call. Before midnight strikes and the curtain closes on the act of pretending, step forward as your true self. God is not outside calling you. God is within you awakening you. And the moment you say yes to that inner voice, the false must fall away. Let it, trust it, honor it, because the real you, the eternal, holy, powerful you, is not waiting for a new world to arrive. That version of you is the new world. And it begins now. There is a silence unlike any other, one that does not come from the absence of noise, but from the fullness of presence. It is the stillness that floods the soul just before everything changes, just before the known collapses and the new emerges. This silence is not empty, it is sacred, it is alive, it is the voice of God, no longer thundering from mountains or written on stone tablets, but whispering directly into your being. And in the final moments before midnight, before the veil between illusions and truth closes again, this silence is God's most urgent, most personal message. Can you hear it? Can you feel it? Not with your ears, not with your logic, but with your spirit. Because in the end, God doesn't speak in noise. God speaks in knowing, in inner flashes, in sacred discomfort, in invisible shifts that echo louder than words. And those who are still enough to listen, those who are ready to let go of the chaos and lean into the silence, will understand everything without a single word being spoken. You've been taught to wait for signs, to expect thunder, to look for external confirmations. But God's final message is not outside of you. It's in the space between your thoughts, in the breath you forget to notice, in the divine ache that says you were made for more. This is not a silence of despair. This is not the emptiness of abandonment. This is the fullness of the divine presence pressing up against the walls of your old identity, inviting you to drop every falsehood and remember who you are without the noise. For too long you've filled the silence with distractions, scrolling, speaking, rushing, fearing, doubting. You've numbed yourself with activity, hoping to escape the discomfort of hearing the truth that's been trying to reach you since before time began. But now God has turned the volume of the world down so the silence can rise, and in that silence there is one final call: return to me, not outside of yourself, but within. That is where the message is. That is where the midnight miracle will occur. This silence is not passive, it is not indifferent, it is not the absence of God, it is the presence of everything real and eternal, waiting for your awareness to catch up. Those who are afraid of silence are really afraid of meeting themselves, because in silence all masks fall away, all performance ends. There is no one to impress, nothing to prove, no crowd to manipulate. There is only the raw, radiant truth of who you are beneath the layers, and that truth is terrifying only to the ego. The soul rejoices in it. The soul is starved for it. So when the silence comes, don't run. Don't fill it, don't try to escape it, sit in it, lean in, breathe, because the final message God is giving to the world before midnight is not found in the headlines, it's found in the heartbeat, in the surrender. In the pause that invites presence. Think about it. Every major moment in Scripture, in destiny, in Revelation, began in silence. Moses was alone when the bush burned. Elijah heard God not in the earthquake or fire, but in the still, small voice. Even Christ retreated into the wilderness, into the quiet, to commune with the Father. And now, in these days, when the noise of the world is louder than ever, God is not shouting to compete. He is withdrawing his voice from the noise and placing it in the secret place, the place within you. And that is where the message lives now, not in sermons, not in social media, not in endless information, but in the sacred inner chamber where truth speaks in the form of intuition, clarity, peace, and sometimes holy discomfort. Because the message of God is not always easy to hear. It will challenge every part of you that still clings to control, but it will also free you in ways the world never could. Before midnight, you must be willing to listen in a new way, not with your ears, but with your presence. Because presence is how God speaks now, not through symbols alone, but through states. You don't hear the message, you become the message. You begin to realize that the silence you feared is actually your spirit being reintroduced to its source. And when you yield to that inner voice, that invisible whisper, everything external must shift. Not because you changed the outside world, but because you finally aligned with the eternal one within. This is what midnight symbolizes, the locking in of assumptions, the moment when your dominant inner state becomes the seed for what your world will reflect. And if you do not take time now to hear clearly, to pause, to separate from the noise, to return to the stillness, then your tomorrow will be a repetition of yesterday, not the resurrection you were meant to experience. The silence is also the place where false identities begin to dissolve. You begin to see that the roles you played, the strong one, the broken one, the helper, the victim, were never your essence. They were just responses to a world that didn't know how to see your soul. But God sees it, and He is calling it forth in this hour, not with drama, not with lightning, but with stillness. That is how the new earth will be born, not in war, but in inner awakening, and the ones who will build it are not the loudest, but the clearest, the most attuned, the most surrendered, the ones who can carry the silence with them into every space and remain unshaken. Those are the ones God is raising now. Those are the ones who will rise before midnight. Not because they have perfect lives, but because they are rooted in the only truth that matters. God is within me. I shall not be moved. Do not mistake silence for inactivity. Do not confuse stillness with weakness. This is the most powerful position a soul can hold, to be still while the world shakes, to be silent while the world screams, to hear the voice of God in the spaces no one else dares to enter. That is the mark of the chosen. And if you're reading this, if something in your spirit is stirring even now, then you are being chosen to carry this silence, not as a burden, but as a blessing, because in the end, what changes the world is not the loudest noise, but the clearest truth. And clarity only comes in silence, so take this time, before midnight, pull away, shut the doors, turn down the volume, come back to yourself. Let the old die, let the masks fall, let the mind rest, and in that sacred pause, feel what has always been true. God is here. Not as a concept, not as a religion, but as the very presence of life moving through you as you. And if you listen, really listen, you will hear it, not in words, but in vibration, in peace, in sudden knowing. That is the final message, that is the divine instruction. Before midnight seals the fate of those still hypnotized by chaos, let the silence speak to you, let it change you, let it separate you from what never belonged to you in the first place. You don't need another sign, you are the sign. You are the one called to carry the silence into a world obsessed with noise. You are the one who will walk into midnight not as a beggar hoping for survival, but as a vessel of presence, clarity, and divine peace. The world is loud, God is not. The world demands attention. God waits in the stillness. Will you go to Him? Will you enter the silence before midnight and allow the message to become you? Because once you do, you will never be the same. And neither will the world around you. That's how it begins. That's how the new creation is born, in silence, in presence, in you. There is a holy threshold that every soul must face, a line drawn not in the sand but in the spirit. It is the moment before midnight, when heaven stands still and watches to see who will awaken, who will surrender, who will say yes, without knowing what the next step looks like. God is patient, but He is not passive. He extends grace, but He also sets boundaries in the unseen realms. Midnight is not about time running out in fear. It's about a decision demanding to be made in faith. You have lingered long enough at the gates of almost. You have entertained truth without committing to it. You've heard the call in your spirit, felt the stirring in your dreams, seen the signs in your circumstances, and still you hesitate, but hear this clearly. God will not wait forever for your yes. Not because He's angry, but because the hour demands movement. When destiny calls, delay is disobedience. When truth knocks, silence becomes denial. And now, as midnight draws near in this spiritual season, your next breath may determine whether you remain where you are or finally rise into what you were born to become. Midnight is not a minute on a clock. It is a cosmic crossroads, a divine point of no return. It is when the old cycles are completed and the new begins, not because time passes, but because consciousness shifts. This is the spiritual law. What you have consistently assumed you will become. What you continue to ignore, you will eventually lose. You cannot stand at the edge of transformation forever without either stepping forward or being swept back into the tide of unconscious living. The moment is now. The portal is open. The grace is available. But the decision is yours, and neutrality in this hour is spiritual suicide. It is not enough to know the truth. You must live it. It is not enough to admire the light. You must become it. It is not enough to feel the presence of God. You must say yes to it with your whole life. This is what makes the midnight moment so terrifying to the ego. It demands a surrender that cannot be faked. It demands a commitment that will cost you every excuse, every mask, every identity that no longer aligns with your purpose. It is not a polite invitation. It is a holy disruption. God is not asking you to consider change. He is commanding it. The hour is urgent, not because he is in a hurry, but because the world you knew is ending, and only the awakened will survive the shift. Look around. What once seemed stable is now shaking. What once gave comfort now breeds confusion. That's not coincidence. That's divine recalibration. You are not being punished. You are being positioned. But positioning without obedience is pointless. You cannot expect the promise while resisting the process. God's final message to the world isn't just wake up. It's act now, choose now, obey now, surrender now. Because waiting has a cost and delay carries consequences you cannot yet see. There is something sacred about the midnight hour. It strips everything down to its essence. All the distractions vanish. All the illusions are silenced. What remains is raw, clear, and undeniable. That's why so many souls break down at midnight, because they can no longer pretend. The lights go out. The noise dies down. And the only thing left is your yes or your no, your faith or your fear, your readiness or your resistance. There is no crowd to cheer you on, no mentor to walk you through it, no applause to comfort you. It is just you and God, spirit to spirit, truth to truth, and in that moment heaven records your answer, not your words, but your vibration, your surrender, your choice. The yes that God is waiting for is not something you say in a church pew. It is something you embody in your daily life. It is the refusal to keep living beneath your divine identity. It is the death of the old self and the resurrection of who you really are. And here's the truth. Many are called, but few are chosen. Not because God plays favorites, but because few are willing to say yes when it still feels dark. Few are willing to believe when there is no proof. Few are willing to walk on water while the storm rages, but this is your moment to be among the few. Not because you are better, but because you are finally ready, ready to stop running, ready to stop hiding, ready to stop asking for signs and start becoming one, ready to stop hoping things change and start being the change. That's what your yes does. It unlocks heaven's agenda through your life. You become the vessel. You become the messenger. You become the evidence of God's reality in a world drowning in illusion. Your yes may not come with clarity. It may not come with comfort. It may not even come with immediate reward. But it will come with power. The moment you say yes, you align with the divine frequency of creation. You shift from hoping for favor to walking in it. You shift from waiting for miracles to manifesting them. You shift from questioning your worth to expressing it. Everything hinges on that yes, and that yes cannot be half-hearted. It must be full, whole, complete. You cannot cling to the old while reaching for the new. You cannot drag your former self into your future calling. You must let go. You must trust the unseen. You must believe not only in God, but in His image within you. The yes you give must echo from your deepest knowing. I was made for more, and I will no longer settle for less. That is the sound of destiny. That is the cry of resurrection. That is the whisper of midnight. And when you say yes, really say it, everything will begin to move, not always comfortably, not always quickly, but divinely. Doors you never saw will open, people aligned with your new frequency will appear, the inner peace you've been chasing will find you. Why? Because God does not withhold from those who surrender. He rushes to those who finally stop fighting His will. Your yes is the trigger that releases what has been waiting for you all along. But without it, you remain in limbo, a soul full of potential but paralyzed by hesitation. That is not your portion. That is not your calling. You were made for more than indecision. You were made to be a living agreement between heaven and earth, and your yes is the signature that seals that covenant. So I ask you now, not as a preacher, not as a motivator, but as a divine echo speaking to the divine in you. Will you say yes before midnight? Will you stop running from the call? Will you stop negotiating with fear? Will you stop trying to make the unknown comfortable and finally step into the river, trusting the current of grace to carry you? Because the truth is, the longer you wait, the louder the noise becomes. The more you hesitate, the more painful the tension gets. The more you resist, the heavier your spirit feels. You were never meant to live like that. You were created to soar, to shine, to move mountains, not in your own strength, but through the yes that aligns you with divine strength. This is not emotional hype. This is not pressure. This is divine timing. This is the sacred now, and once it passes, the door doesn't close in anger, it closes in order. Midnight comes whether you are ready or not. And while God's love is eternal, opportunities are not. The soil is ripe, the winds are shifting, the angels are watching, the heavens are open, and your yes is the seed that turns the moment into a miracle. Don't let fear keep you out of what was always meant to be yours. Don't let logic talk you out of what your spirit already knows. Don't let comfort delay your calling. Say yes, say it fully, say it boldly. Say it now, because once midnight passes, the world will move into the next chapter, and only those who have said yes will walk in the fullness of it. Let this be the moment. Let this be the turning point. Let this be the sound that echoes through eternity. I said yes to the voice within. I said yes to the call I cannot explain. I said yes to the God who will never leave me. I said yes before midnight, and everything changed. There is a weight in the atmosphere now, not of fear but of destiny. The heavens have declared it, the earth is groaning for it, and your soul has known it since before you were born. You are the chosen carrier of God's final message to this world, not by accident, not by coincidence, and certainly not by human design. You were set apart in the invisible long before you could comprehend your calling, and now, before the spiritual midnight strikes, that calling is being activated in full. This is not the season for playing small. This is not the time to ask, who am I to carry such light? The truth is, who are you not to? You are not here to blend in. You are not here to be silent. You are here as the living message of the divine in a world starving for something real. You are here to walk through darkness and not flinch, to speak when others are silent, to love when others hate, to embody heaven in human form. You are the message, and it is time to act like you know it. There are no coincidences in your journey. Every tear, every betrayal, every lonely night, every moment you were misunderstood or overlooked was shaping you into someone who could carry revelation with humility and power. You were not buried, you were planted, and what has been growing in the soil of your spirit is now ready to break through the surface. You carry light in your bones and truth in your breath. The message of God is not just something you speak, it's something you live. It's the peace you radiate when the world is in chaos. It's the quiet confidence in your eyes that says, I know who I am, and I know who sent me. It's the way you carry yourself, not with pride, but with purpose. Because you know, deep in your spirit, that you are the chosen one for this moment, this generation, this hour before midnight. The world has tried to convince you that you're just another person trying to get by. But God has been whispering all along that you're a vessel carrying eternity, and now that whisper is no longer soft. It's urgent. It's thunder in your chest, because the time of hiding is over. The time of apologizing for your light is over. The time of waiting for someone else to lead, to speak, to rise, is over. It's you. You are the sign this world needs, not by might, not by religious performance, but by divine identity. God isn't sending a new prophet from the clouds. He's awakening the prophets hidden in plain sight. And that includes you, yes, you, the one who doubted, the one who failed, the one who tried to walk away but couldn't shake the call. The message is in you, and it's burning now, and if you ignore it, you will feel restless, heavy, out of alignment, because your peace can no longer be found in comfort. It can only be found in obedience. You may not feel ready. You may still think you need more healing, more learning, more confirmation. But heaven disagrees. Heaven says, you have what it takes because you have me. God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called, and the moment you say yes to carrying the message, everything you need to fulfill it will begin to manifest. The people, the words, the platform, the strength, the timing, the clarity. It will all align once you step out of fear and into identity. And no, it won't be perfect. You'll make mistakes. You'll have days where you wonder if you heard God correctly. But the power of the message is not in your perfection, it's in your surrender. When you carry divine truth with humility and faith, heaven backs every word you release. When you speak from the fire of conviction and not from the approval of man, mountains move. Chains break, atmospheres shift, lives are changed, not because of you, but because of who flows through you. This is why you've been under pressure. This is why your life has felt like a refining furnace. Not because you're being punished, but because you're being prepared. God doesn't place his treasure in vessels that haven't been tested. You were forged in fire so you could withstand the weight of glory. And now the weight is here, not to crush you, but to crown you. You're not the same person you were a year ago. You've seen too much, survived too much, grown too much, and that wasn't just for you. That was for the message. Because the world doesn't need more polished performers. The world needs real messengers, those who have been through hell and came back holy, those who have known the silence of God and still chose to believe, those who carry light because they had to fight their way out of darkness. That's you. That's why you're still standing. That's why you couldn't quit, even when you wanted to. So what is this final message you carry? It's not a doctrine, it's not a slogan, it's the living truth that God is here, in us, with us, as us. It's the reminder that love is stronger than fear, that presence is more powerful than performance. That identity is not earned, it's remembered. It's the bold declaration that the veil is torn and heaven is now, that the kingdom is not coming, it's already within, that salvation is not a future reward, it's a present awakening, and that every person you meet carries the same divine spark you've found in yourself. Your life becomes the sermon, your peace becomes the proof, your love becomes the light. You don't preach it, you become it. That's the message, and the world is dying to hear it, see it, feel it through you. This is why you must stop hesitating. The hour is too late, and the need is too great. You're not waiting on a sign, you are the sign. You're not praying for a move of God, you are the move of God. When you walk into a room carrying divine awareness, the entire atmosphere changes. You don't need a stage to make an impact. You only need alignment. You only need to remember who you are and act like it, speak like it, move like it, love like it. You've carried the burden of your calling for too long. It's time to carry the power of it. You've asked, why me? The better question is, why not me? God has placed eternity in your mouth, and your voice is the key to unlocking freedom in places still held hostage by fear and confusion. Let this be the hour where you stop dimming your light to fit in with people who were never assigned to your destiny. Let this be the moment where you stop rehearsing your doubts and start releasing your faith. Let this be the day you say out loud, I am chosen and I accept it fully, not in arrogance but in authority, not in pride but in purity. Your yes and now doesn't just change your life. It ignites a chain reaction in the lives connected to you. There are people you haven't met yet whose liberation is tied to your obedience. There are territories in the spirit that will remain locked until you speak. You may think your voice is small, but in the spirit it's a sword. You may think your influence is limited, but your presence carries glory. You may feel unseen, but you are fully known by heaven and fully equipped for the task. Before midnight strikes, before this window of divine alignment closes, stand up in your truth. Don't just carry the message. Be the message. When you walk in love, you carry the message. When you refuse to gossip, you carry the message. When you choose faith over fear, peace over panic, vision over victimhood, you carry the message. When you bless your enemies, forgive quickly, and give without expecting applause, you carry the message. And every step you take in obedience sends a shockwave through the spirit realm that says, a chosen one has risen. This is your time, this is your hour, this is your midnight moment, and heaven is waiting for you to step into it, not timidly, not halfway, but fully, boldly, fiercely, and faithfully. You are not just here to survive these times. You are here to transform them. You are the message the world has been waiting for. Act like you know, speak like you know, live like you know, because once you do, the world will never be the same. Midnight is coming. But the chosen have already been lit like flames in the darkness. And you, yes, you are one of them.